Here at Be Freaking Awesome, we believe that life is too short to be anything less than extraordinary. Join us as we explore what it means to live authentically, grow continuously, and have a blast while doing it. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison, here with Angela Belford, and today we are going to be talking about one of our favorite things in the world, competition.
But not the kind that leaves you burnt out and comparing yourself to everyone else, right? I mean, Sami, we are going to talk about your obsession with board games, but what are we going to get into here?
We are actually talking with a guest, and we'll let you meet him here in just a moment. But the conversation was so good. We ended up splitting it into two parts. So this first part, we're going to be talking about self-competition, contentment versus drive, and how you can chase growth without running yourself into the ground.
Yeah, this is really about being able to keep growing, stay grateful, and give your future self a little gift along the way. I love the idea of how I don't just live for today, but how can I show up better for future Angela?
I love it. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sami Kinnison, here with Angela Belford, and today we are joined by very special guest, Jake Thompson, and we are going to be talking all about competition, one of my favorite things. But Jake, why don't you take a moment and just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then Angela, why don't you tell us how you know Jake after that?
Yeah, so I am the chief encouragement officer at a brand called Compete Every Day. Live in Frisco, Texas, married to my wife, Elena, and proud dog dad of 5 rescue pups, which are all sprinkled around me as we speak. And I work primarily as a keynote speaker and leadership performance coach.
I love that.
I love it too, because a couple of years ago, joined National Speakers Association. That's NSA, the speakers, not the listeners. And my favorite thing, I was in Toastmasters for 15 years and loved the camaraderie and what all I learned. But man, NSA is so good about teaching the business of speaking. And when you get to meet people that's like their primary business, it's super cool. And one of the things that I love about our chapter, it's the number one chapter. I don't know. There's some rankings that say we're number 2, but I mean, come on, give me a break. It's number 1. It's the bomb. I'm a hybrid member, but we do an 8-minute member moment, and so you get to hear what all of the other members do, so that then you're like, oh, I know somebody that needs a speaker like that. So anyway, that is how I know Jake. Is literally, he gave his member moment. I instantly stalked and obsessed about him on LinkedIn, and here we are.
And here we are. And I'll get to do a Saturday one in 26, so you'll have to plan to be there.
Very cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Well, if you're watching on YouTube or on one of the videos, you might notice that Jake has a shirt that says Compete Every Day, has a book behind him, has a whole brand. Can we start here? Start with what birthed this sort of brand and movement, if you will?
How much time do we have?
A lot. However much you want.
We got a lot. We can take it. So I'm an ultra competitive individual, similar to yourself, Sami, and grew up in East Texas, small town East Texas kid. Football is life, sports are life. And so my entire life was a constant competition of me versus you. And it works for a while, but over time, it's a very unhealthy approach to life. And so as I got older, really started to struggle with competition. Went through a down period in life, came through some stuff. And when I was coming out of it, and I'm 60 pounds overweight, trying to rebuild my life, I start going back into the practice of going to the gym, playing basketball, working out. And every day for kind of the first part of my life, it's me versus me. And I'm not worried about what everyone else is doing, and I'm competing with myself. And so physically, I start to go through a change. Mentally, I went through a much more dramatic change. And as people would ask me, like, what are you doing? It's just competing with myself. And so the more I talked about it, the more I'd see it resonate. And after 6 to 8 months of kind of tinkering around with it, I said, what do you guys think about compete every day? And my best friend, roommate at the time, and another one of our good friends were like, man, that's you. Like, you are ultra competitive. Like, we think this is it. What are you going to do with it? I said, I have no idea. It sounds really cool though, right? So I spent a few more months testing and trying some different things before eventually my same roommate goes, hey, what about t-shirts? He said, there's a brand called Life is Good. They do 120 million a year off this simple message. He said, I think your message could work really well. What if you gave it a shot? And so I put some money I'd set aside into a couple of boxes of t-shirts and tank tops and started selling them out of the trunk of my car back in 2011 with this message of competing every day. And so as that kind of started the journey of how do I help people understand that the real competition is with yourself and that every day there's something to strive toward, to compete for, if you're intentional about pointing in the right direction.
I love that. And I love that it started humble beginnings, as they say, but really just with what you had in front of you. You didn't have to have big $1 million budget to go do a whole thing. You just had an idea and ran with it, which is something that all of us could do in different ways.
Well, and I have the last few months really been thinking about the idea of living up to my own standards of excellence. And I've been thinking about this idea I learned when I was getting my life coach certification of blow your own mind. Like, who cares what everybody else says about you? Like, can you impress yourself? Right. And so when you talk about that compete every day, that's really what comes up for me is the idea of like, there have been times over the last few months I've been pushing to a new level of achievement. And I'm like, I didn't even know I could do that. Like, what do you mean? I used to think, oh my gosh, 3 podcast recordings in a day. I recorded 7 in 2 days, during that piece. And I was like, oh my gosh, I blew my, and well, then now once you get to that point, then like now when you have to just do the thing, it's easy to do the thing because I've already exceeded it. And then now it up levels in such dramatic ways.
The interesting thing about that, what I love is like every new level, right, requires a new level of us. But the growth is uncomfortable. We always love having grown, but we hate growing. And what's interesting and what we don't ever realize, right, is as you get to the new level, I think a lot of people have the incorrect assumption that, oh, I'm here now, right? I'm good. But to go to the next level after that, you start the process all over again. You have to go through the discomfort and the mess and kind of working through it. And so I love that idea because now you're in a position where you can look back and be like, look at what I'm doing now. Like, I couldn't believe back then that I could do it. What else am I still capable of if I keep moving down this path?
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask maybe a question, kind of like a pushback question. Is there a time to be, how do you balance like contentment and satisfaction with that drive forward that could sometimes maybe overdone, could go into the I'm not enough or I'll never be enough. I don't think that there's two ditches here. There's the over ditch. Yeah.
So it's funny. I think life for high performers and high achievers is constantly living in that tension.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple ways to look at it, right? Contentment is not complacency, just like patience is not passive. Like, I think a lot of times we confuse if you're content, you're complacent. If you're patient, you're being passive. But patience is you're working the process, but your identity is not tied up in the timeline. Your worth is not validated in the timeline. And so the way I look at it is really twofold, right? I think you balance the contentment piece with gratitude. I think continually being grateful for where you've come from, what you've achieved. I think that comes down to even just the daily practice of gratitude. Like, one of the things that I think is so funny is like, I'm not huge on, I used not to be big on journaling. And now it's just, I scribble thoughts. But one of the things I've really found myself doing, and we laugh about it, like when you see people on social media posting pictures from the airplane, but I love taking a picture out an airplane window because every time, morning, afternoon, evening, like you just get above the cloud line, it's beautiful. And like that for me is a moment of gratitude for like, I get to see this because I get to go do this because I'm doing things I never, like just being in there or having pictures of like some of my first gigs or some of the first people who spoke to me. So like having a gratitude practice is really important to not underplay what you've done and where you've come from. At the same time, I feel gratitude also fuels you forward because you're either pressing forward out of fear of I'm not enough, I've got to do more, I've got to have these things to measure up, or you look at it and say, I'm grateful for the opportunity. How do I continue to do it? I'm grateful I get to serve people this way. How do I continue to do it? And so I think it's really that practice of gratitude to ground you, because it's not like you're taking your foot off the gas. And I think people that can't take their foot off the gas do so out of fear, because we're afraid like the rug's going to be yanked out from underneath us, or we're never going to be enough, and all of those. And honestly, I think a lot of that comes down to comparison and ego, which I believe are kind of the root enemies that we tend to battle against. But gratitude is there in that piece. And for someone who says compete every day, I believe in the everyday part of the process. It doesn't mean you're burning yourself out or you're running it out of fear, but more so you're grateful for the chance to show up and do the things. And so you strive toward it.
I think that, and I quote Victoria's song on this all the time. She says that 1 foot in gratitude and 1 foot in hopeful expectation, that today was amazing and the best day it could possibly be.
Wow.
And tomorrow, wouldn't it be great if it was even better? But, and I think that I love how you talk about the idea of outrunning our fear, because when you are competing to outrun, I'm not good enough, man, that is a fast track to burnout. It is a fast track. But when I am like, I've been talking with a couple of coach clients about the idea of when I'll say, how true is it, this belief? And they won't give me a 10. And they're like, no, because then at 10, if I say that today is a level 10 day, then that means there's no room for growth. And I'm like, no. I think that a September 10, when I'm in January, looking back on September compared to January, I want this day to be an 8. Right. It's okay that when I hindsight look back, that man, what I thought was a 10, it continues to improve, but it really matters. What's interesting is it matters in your heart and your motive. Nobody else can actually see, or most of the time, not nobody. Sometimes people are really obvious and they're outrunning the belief I'm not enough, right? You're like, ooh, that's not pretty. Like, so sometimes, but there's right now, my activity level and my busyness level in my business, externally, people are like, oh, Angela's back in workaholic mode. And I'm like, I'm absolutely not. I'm actually not even capable of being a workaholic at this moment, because I'm not doing the work to feel good about myself. I already feel good about myself. I'm doing the work out of feeling great about myself.
It's interesting you say that. So one of my coaches, she and I, one of the things we worked on had nothing to do with the business. And it was really on the constant pursuit. So I struggle, like a lot of speakers, struggle with vacation sometimes. And we travel, my wife and I travel all the time. Like we love to travel, which is funny because when I get home, I'm like, I've been on an airplane. Do we need to get on another? Like, can I stay home with the dogs? But we just love to travel. And for years, I struggled in vacations of like, I need to be working. Like I don't want to take all this. Like I've got stuff I've got to do. And getting out of that mindset, because for a lot of us as speakers, it's like, yeah, I've got gigs booked next year, but what if nobody else books me after that? And talking to other speakers, like they all have some of them are like, I had $1 million business. I still thought that. Like, what if I never get booked again? What if that was the last gig? Mm-hmm. And so like you have those kind of moments where you go, but I think what happens a lot of time is the fear takes over. Like we're afraid of whatever, not enough, or we do the thing like, and I'm guilty of this, is you sit by the pool and you're reading a book and you pick up your phone and you pop open social media and one of our peers or somebody you don't know who's also in the industry is on stage and you're like, they're probably getting more gigs than me because I'm here on vacation and they're on the stage. Like you start thinking some of those things. And so you have to be really intentional to what you said, the gratitude and the hopefulness of where am I focused? Mm-hmm. Where does my show, how do I show up? Right. What's my mentality around it? Don't worry if everybody else thinks I'm in workaholic mode. Like I know the difference when I am and when I'm not.
Right.
And what am I channeling my energies and efforts toward?
I also, for me, I'm really internalizing the selflessness in taking care of myself. And that for a long time, it was like, no, no, I have to pour out for others. And it doesn't matter how many times somebody explains, put your own oxygen mask on first. It doesn't matter. That metaphor doesn't mean anything in my real life. I really have to go and pour everything out. And I'm seeing too many times, and I've experienced too many times, that then I was at such a low, I could not help anybody else. And even at times I was at physical lows that I couldn't do anything. Interestingly, I think back to when I was pregnant with my second, I ended up getting COVID pneumonia and I slept for 18 hours a day for 2 weeks. And in that time, like my husband talks about how hard that was to then basically become a single parent to our 3-year-old. And he was making me meals and praying that I ate the toast he brought me and all of these things, that it was like, no, I literally couldn't even make my own toast for a moment. And not saying that that was like my fault that I did that, but there are times where I'm like, no, no, we are not going to allow ourselves to get pushed to a physical limit, to get pushed to an emotional limit, because I have to be able to show up for the next challenge. I've got to be able to show up for the people I care about. I'm pretty sure on my journey, I will get to a point where I am more content be taking care of myself for the sake of taking care of myself. But right now on my journey, I take care of myself because that enables me to take care of other people. I'm going to
Well,
allow that space in that journey.
I have not made it to that point. What I think about often, and I say, we were in Kansas City last weekend, and I'm like, no, no, no. I'm going to give Monday Angela a gift. And this is what
Mm,
I'm going to do. I'm going to actually go to bed on time. I'm going to eat properly. I'm not going to eat the sugar as a gift to my future self. That's the only way I take care of my today self, is because I'm like, I know what Monday Angela needs. I know what Tuesday Angela is going to need. And I think at 52, I had to really come to grips with the idea that energy is not limitless. There is absolutely a limit to it. Decision making ability is not limitless. And so learning to protect those, I don't know that I feel selfless to about it to anybody else, but it's just a gift to myself, because, and I think it's a gift to the people around me too, because when I'm super tired and super cranky and I just want to cry all the time, like, it's not helpful to anybody else. So I guess it is kind of being helpful to them, but I haven't gotten there yet where I feel like I'm selfless. I have to still play tricks on my brain. Like, no, 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 you're giving yourself a gift.
I mean, it's funny. John Acuff, if you're familiar with the
I
author
love
and
him.
speaker, he talked about, I think in his book Soundtracks,
I
when
love
he
him.
would finish work and he knew he wasn't done with everything, he would say, I'm giving tomorrow's version the gift
Yes.
of having something important to do. And like
Yes.
that would be how he closed out the day, is like, I'm gifting tomorrow something important to work on, so you wake up with that purpose. And so I think it's the same mentality, right? You're looking
Mm-hmm.
in advance. Most people don't, right? It's the same mentality of like, and I say this to somebody, I back into parking spots, drives my wife nuts. And she's like, why? I was like, because I'm thinking about the version of me that's leaving the parking lot later and doesn't want to get hit, or I can get out faster. But it's the same, it's literally the same mentality of you're thinking, how can I set tomorrow's version up better? How can I make a
Mm-hmm.
future decision? Which is what is so rare, because
Mm-hmm.
most of us don't. We placate ourselves to the moment.
I only back into parking places. I have a client, and when I park at their place, I always back in, because I know by the end of I'm on site with them one day a week. I'm exhausted, and have a hard time backing out of that parking garage when I'm just mentally depleted. It's the only place that I do it, and again, it's to myself. And people will be like, "What are you doing? This is not your rhythm." I'm like, "It is here."
It is here.
Because I'm afraid of exhausted Angela not being able to pay attention to somebody whipping around the corner. So that's
Yep.
funny. I loved that part of the conversation, especially the reminder that growth isn't comfortable, but it's worth it. It totally reminds me. Do you remember that one time at family camp?
that one time at family camp? Yes, I do. No, and I kept trying to figure out a way to naturally fit that story into the episode, and I could not get it in a way that felt good and authentic. So thank you for teeing me up. For everybody else, since we're having our own little moment about our own memory, what had happened was we went to a church camp every Memorial Day, if you, within the church, if you had a child roughly elementary age, then the whole family got to go to camp. Well, the camp had lots of competitions, lots of different things, activities to do together as a family. And it had been several years that we were going. And the first like opening activity was you were supposed to go make a family crest, like a shield, if you will. And you're going to put words on the crest that represent your family and, you know, gentleness and loving and all sorts of things like that. And the Belfords, we come back with our crest. And what word do we have on it? Not multiple words, not anything else, just one big block letters: competition, competitive, right there. We were all in, all competitive. Forget everything else.
Oh, we were years later, like Lexi and I ended up when she was in fourth grade. Church had a different thing for fourth and fifth graders where you got to go with one kid and one parent, which was super fun. And this one team, these people that were complaining to one of the leaders, they were like, that's not fair. Our team has why do we have so much fewer people? And they were like, because we put the Belfords on your team. That is why you got a smaller team. And we won. We did crazy stuff in the name of competition.
Oh my gosh. Memories. Like, we would practice eating saltines and whistling just in our free time as like warm up to get ready for camp. Like, you never know what kind of thing like that you're going to have to do. So we were ready.
It was really, and it was before that game show. Remember the game show that they had?
Minute to Win It?
Minute to Win It. That's what these were. These were like minute to win it kind of games. And we were always in it.
I actually, for my 29th birthday, I made everybody come to my house and play minute to win it games because it was my day and I want to do it. And I have so few times where I get people who will like, sure, Sammy, we'll play your silly, ridiculous games with you. And I'm like, well, too bad. It's my birthday. You have to. So there you go.
We're going to play my reindeer games.
That's exactly right. So no, competition is just such a big part of our life that there's so many funny stories about it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, getting us the opportunity to share some of our funny stories. We were so good and deep and rich in the episode with Jake.
It's just nice well, and also I can remember years later, like, I don't remember what Lexi was whining about, and I'm sorry, she would never have done that, you know, like little small kid. But I was like,
I remember what she was whining about, as any oldest sister would, because I know exactly what story it is. We were playing a game at the table, so this was also a thing. Our family, we played some type of game with pretty much every meal we ate at the table. Maybe not 100%, but at least like 98% of the games we ate together as family. We played a game, and Lexi had lost and she was very sad about it. And I, sassy to her, she was in the process of losing. That's what it was. Also, she was in the process of losing, hadn't lost yet. And she goes, fine, I give up. And I go, Lexi, remember the family motto? And Josh pipes in, never lose. And I go, no, the family motto was never give up.
That's right.
But
it's about tenacity and persistence. It's not always about competition to beat other people. It was funny,
though, that Josh thought the family motto was never lose.
Yeah, never, never, never give up. Okay, if this episode encouraged you, or you know somebody that maybe is a little crazy about competition and needs to gentle reminder to rest and reflect, don't forget to share. Follow us on social, subscribe to our newsletter, all the things. And don't miss part 2 next week. We are going to dig into how competition shows up with other people and what healthy rivalry and community really can look like.
So until next time, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.